The cover of Politico magazine shows Donald Trump facing a media mob with the headline, "What have we done?" As if the whole thing is our fault, really. Joining me now from New York is Trish Regan, who hosts the Intel Report at 2 Eastern on the Fox Business Network. Hey, Trish.
Hey, Howie.
So there's an argument being pushed, among others, by former NBC and CNN anchor Campbell Brown, who's no fan of Trump, saying TV News is to blame for Trump's nomination and basically just rolled over for the guy. Your thoughts?
No, look, I don't think that anyone rolled over for the guy. I would actually make the point that a lot of members of the media have been extraordinarily critical of him. He's actually gotten it from both sides. That said, yes, the media has covered him a lot. A lot because he's been making news. I mean, there are some organizations, for example, the Huffington Post, that early came out and said, we're not going to cover Trump because that's just entertainment. We don't consider it politics. We're putting it in the entertainment section of our website. And they clearly learned within a few weeks that that strategy was a failed one. The reality is, Howie, we cover the news every day. Donald Trump, like it or not, is making news.
And, of course, doing many, many interviews on many, many channels, talks to newspapers.
Yeah.
So Jeb Bush, for instance, was the media's anointed frontrunner at the beginning. How many TV interviews did he do?
You know, that's a great example because I was calling him to get him on my program. And he finally came on, but it was extraordinarily challenging. Donald Trump, on the other hand, as you know, Howie, is much more accessible to the media. And so when you look and compare and contrast the number of interviews that some of these other candidates did, the challenges getting them on the air with what Trump was doing, it was a very different strategy. I mean, again, I think the frustration was in part, as a member of the media, you would see some of these candidates buy this airtime. So they'd have a 30-second commercial in the middle of your show, but you know, God forbid, they actually come on and answer some questions. Yeah, they didn't like that sort of balance of power that they lost. They preferred their bought airtime. Trump would go on and answer a lot of questions for the media. Sometimes it got him in some hot water, but he seemed to be of the mindset that, you know, any news is good news as far as he was concerned in terms of getting his name and brand.
Now, the critics do have a point. Many Trump rallies were covered live, particularly on some other cable news networks, and the shows that let him call in when other people didn't have that privilege, and that did give him an advantage, and a lot of it was driven by ratings. But I'm glad you mentioned the negative aspect of the coverage because, you know, he was getting it from mainstream media pundits who didn't think he had much of a chance. He was getting it from, in harsh terms, from conservatives and liberals, and then being attacked as racist, sexist, xenophobic, misogynist, but it didn't seem to hurt him, all of those media attacks. Why is that?
It's amazing, that phenomenon. I think in part because many Americans hate the media. They see the media as part of the problem, as part of the establishment, right? And here was Trump getting attacked by both the establishment and the media, and they said to themselves, okay, he's my guy. He's not getting along with any of these people that I don't like, so therefore.
He had the right enemies, meaning us. All right, last question. There is this argument that news organizations could have been more aggressive in digging into his business background, his proposals, his misstatements, his contradictions. There was a lot of that. We could always do a better job. And again, it seemed to roll off him. Or do you think that we could have done a much better job in investigating Trump Inc.?
Now, I think stuff rolls off him. I think that people are responding to what they perceive as a real authenticity. I think you're seeing this on both sides. I mean, Bernie Sanders, the success he's had thus far, that is simply a product of people responding to authenticity. They like who he is. That's the same thing Donald Trump has going for him. So it's almost as though whatever happens, he's like Teflon. It just rolls off.
Right.
People aren't willing to hear it because they're saying to themselves, I like the guy. And you know what? Politics is a lot about how much you like a candidate. That's in part what makes a good candidate.
I got to go, but Teflon, most politicians wish they had that. Trish Regan, great to see you this morning.